Greetings everyone, I'm Darth Castigus. If you like my videos, please like, share, and subscribe so you can be notified when new videos come out, and hit the notification bell to be notified and to beat the evil algorithm. I've said before that Kathleen Kennedy has failed in every way that the president of a major corporation can fail. She has managed to lose money not on one, but two Star Wars movies. Such a feat would be unthinkable under George Lucas. Today I'm going to talk about why focusing on the single most important thing the president or CEO of any company can do, make money, that at a minimum the head of the company must not lose money, but you really need to make money. Lots of money. Like Scrooge McDuck piles of money. Kathleen Kennedy, however, has lost Disney literally billions. Please join me in an exploration of the dark side of movie math. Let's take your average $150 million blockbuster. I know saying $150 million is average kind of makes you question a few things. This is the average cost of a blockbuster film according to research done by Stephen Follows, a film blogger and Hollywood insider. Now keep in mind, this article was written several years ago. Today, the average Hollywood blockbuster is over $200 million. The budget of a film covers many things, and in general, the production of a movie is broken down into several phases. Script and development. This is your early phase. This is when you have a script, you pitch the idea, the financiers or the producers, studio, whoever is involved to pay for the thing actually agree this is a good idea. You then spend weeks, months, sometimes even years trying to develop the script into something workable that you can actually shoot. During this time, you may attach directors, producers, named actors, something to generate interest in the film, to see if this is actually worth the trouble and the expense. Next, once you've got a script, you've got your main people involved, you go into what's called pre-production. This is where you start designing costumes, designing sets, plotting out your shoot, picking your equipment, getting the rest of your people, like the guy who gets you your coffee, for instance. Production's pretty obvious. This is when they're shooting the film. Post-production is when they do all of the editing, special effects. All of this is part of the expense of the film. Now this is the published budget. This is what you'll see if you look up things on, say, Box Office Mojo, and they give you a price. What this doesn't include, however, is residuals, promotion, distribution.
Merchandising, where the real money from the movie is made.
Residual deals, things like points, basically a percentage of the take, where an actor or director gets a share of the profits, are the reason Hollywood counting exists. It's there to screw the actors. It's not just to screw the actors, though. It also screws the director out of their profit shares. In fact, it's designed to screw anyone out of any shares. But also, and this cannot be stressed enough, is to screw the IRS out of taxes. Because if your movie loses money, you don't have to pay taxes on it. Now, the movie doesn't have to actually lose money, it just has to lose money on paper, which is where all the funny accounting comes in. I could only imagine the nuclear hellfire that would result from the IRS doing a full audit of any studio, especially Disney. I doubt any of them would survive. A perfect example of this is what's been done to David Prowse. Officially, believe it or not, Return of the Jedi has never earned a dime, at least on paper, in Lucasfilm's books. You know, where they determine how much they owe David Prowse from his residual deal. Yeah, that would be nothing. He's been trying to get it for years. He finally died without getting any of the money. This is not just Lucasfilm. This is all the studios. The budgets for Hollywood blockbusters are easy enough to come by. IMDb, Box Office Mojo, the numbers, etc., and even Wikipedia can give you reported budgets of any given movie. These numbers are derived from both leaks and educated guesses. Stephen has found that based on actual hard numbers from unnamed sources, public records tends to underestimate the budgets by about 12.5%. Now keep in mind, Stephen has worked in the industry and has actually gotten access to the actual budget sheets. So this is where he's drawing most of his information from. While the movie is in production, the promotional campaign starts. This promotion cost is hard to nail down, but on average, expect at least half the cost of the budget to spend on promotion. In many cases, it can equal the cost of the budget and sometimes exceed it. Like when Disney's getting desperate because their shitty Star Wars movies are failing. You know all the interviews and talk show appearances by actors around the world, all the movie tie-ins, promotions at fast food restaurants, commercials, press releases and such that you see before a film comes out? All of that is part of the marketing budget, which can run hundreds of millions of dollars by itself. All that first class air travel, top notch hotels, and food provided to the actors, and sometimes the director on promotional tours, all gets charged to the film. The average marketing budget for a blockbuster comes out to about 81% of the film's production budget, but can be as high as double. Your next issue is prints. In the old days, this meant celluloid. You had to actually make a physical copy of the film and then ship it out to theaters. Now, in the digital age, theaters mostly get their movies either one of two ways: downloads or hard drives. There's still a large expense in either of these options. On average, it costs about $70 million to get the film into theaters, especially something with a large international distribution like a Star Wars film, or one of the Marvel films, for instance. I used to work with the biggest theater chain in North America. I serviced their systems and ran the projectors and downloaded the movies. Trust me when I tell you, these files are huge. Each film is hundreds of gigs to terabytes in size. An 8K movie is gigantic. Most theaters get the films delivered on disc, unless they're in a major city like LA, Dallas, or Chicago, where internet service is top notch. Otherwise, it could take literally days to download a cinema quality film. Other fees the studios will charge off are overhead, lawyers and clearance, financing costs, the interest on the loans used to finance the movie, residuals, assuming the movie makes any money thanks to the Hollywood accounting, and that sort of thing. So here's a graphic breakdown of the typical $150 million blockbuster's actual costs. Before a single ticket is sold, you're already about $400 million in the hole. That's right, you are $400 million in debt before a single frame of this thing is shown to anyone. Now, going by the chart, all the additional costs come out to roughly twice the budget of the film, on average. However, thanks to the law of diminishing returns, there's a fairly finite limit as to how much you can spend on advertising and distribution. So I'm just going to call it $266 million in additional costs to actually bring the film to theaters once you pass the $150 million budget mark, which every Disney Star Wars film has done. This is the average of all costs according to Stevens' chart. Keep in mind, however, that the cheapest Disney film was Rogue One at $200 million declared, which means it was closer to $225. TLJ cost over $300 million, with the average promotion cost of 81%. Rogue One would have cost over $160 million just in promotion costs, and TLJ would have cost $256 million in promotional costs alone. But I'm going to give Kennedy the benefit of the doubt. Don't shoot me. And stick with the industry average reasonable limit of 266, all included. Yes, it's obvious Disney was desperate with Fall of Skywalker and pushed the advertising to the very limit. But there's a point where the market is saturated and more advertising doesn't really do anything because the law of diminishing returns really starts to kick in. So, you're now $500 million in debt on your $150 million project. Your film is done. The promotion tour is in full swing. Opening night is finally here. Now you can finally start making back some of that money you've invested. Ideally, at the very least, you want to break even at the box office. Like Kevin Smith once said, the movie is just a commercial for your DVD. This is very true. You want to make enough money that the DVD sales, streaming, airline rentals, on-demand, TV rights, etc. are pure profit. You do not want to be in the position of having to make up box office losses with sales afterwards, which is exactly the position Kathleen Kennedy has found herself in.
Fuck.
Well, how much does the studio really make from the theater? Well, about half. The box office returns you see reported are gross sales. That means there's nothing deducted, like the theater's cut. That's just the total amount of money taken in by ticket sales. Of that total, the theaters keep about 40% domestically in the US and Canada, but 60 to 80% overseas, varying by country and region. For simplicity's sake, we're going to call it 50% across the board. In recent years, the international gross, meaning everywhere on Earth that is not the United States or Canada, has outpaced the domestic, sometimes by a significant margin. Taking all of that into consideration, our Star Wars movie grosses $1 billion worldwide. Our share of that is about $500 million. Once we deduct our costs of $450 million, we end up with $50 million in profit off of $1 billion in box office sales. Keep this in mind, it will become very important. Here is the breakdown of production costs and box office returns for all the Star Wars films to date. Just for argument's sake, going by raw numbers, The Force Awakens is the most profitable Star Wars film in history. This shouldn't come as a great surprise to anyone. It had been a decade since Revenge of the Sith. People were excited for more Star Wars, and so the film did pretty well, as the first episode in a trilogy is always done. Now, watch what happens when I adjust for inflation. Still doesn't come close to Episode 4, New Hope. Hell, Empire Strikes Back comes in third overall. This also isn't surprising considering George Lucas changed the film industry forever with the original Star Wars trilogy, and Force Awakens is just a bad remake of A New Hope. What's also interesting is that the original trilogy was only released in the US, Canada, and Europe, to a total of 1,100 theaters for A New Hope, 1,300 theaters for Empire, and 1,700 for Jedi. Disney's Star Wars was released worldwide, including China, who hadn't even seen the original Star Wars movies until 2015, and then only got the special edition versions. The increase in theaters is due in large part to the increase in population and the increased popularity of films worldwide. In 1977, the Earth's population was just over 4 billion. Today it's well over 7. If we adjust the original trilogy and prequels for the number of theaters they were released in, on average about 4,200 of them, Disney Star Wars box office becomes a sad, sad joke. So how much money did Kathleen Kennedy lose on her SJW wars? Let's take a look. Here we have the budgets of all the Disney Star Wars films. If we add in the $266 million in additional cost to each one and adjust for underreporting, here's our actual totals. Yikes, these things are expensive. Like, insanely expensive. It's mind-boggling how much movies cost these days. Oh wait, I almost forgot. Rise of Skywalker reshot reportedly about 40% of the film, thus increasing the budget significantly. Thanks for that, Doomcock. I'm even going to be generous and only penalizing them 30%. Even though George Lucas did some massive redesign and reshooting, it's possible that the reshoots ran well north of an additional 50% because he effectively ran an entire second pre-production in a rush, which is extremely expensive. Normally this wouldn't be the case. So let's add that in, and there we go. That's better. Now let's see how this all shakes out. Wait a minute. It looks like Kennedy managed to lose money on both Solo and Fall of Skywalker. She lost so much money, in fact, that she wiped out all the profits from Force Awakens, Rogue One, and TLJ.
Most impressive.
Kathleen Kennedy is an utter failure. She got woke and went broke. I don't think Bob Iger isn't completely aware of all of this. He'd be a fool not to be. Which is why the rumors of Kennedy's soon-to-be demise are flying around. Let's hope this happens sooner rather than later. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.